It's been just over 3 months since I switched to the Apple iPhone 6s Plus after using Android as my daily driver for several years, and as you would expect, there are a lot of changes both from a hardware standpoint and from a software standpoint. I'm Aaron Baker, and today I'm talking about my likes, my dislikes, and more 3 months into this iOS experience and whether I'm going to stick with the iPhone or whether I'm going to switch back to Android. Join me and we'll find out together. It's been just over 3 months since I switched to the Apple iPhone 6s Plus as my daily driver from Android, and if you know anything about my device habits, you know it's been some time since I've used an iOS device as my daily driver. In fact, thinking back, it's probably been since the iPhone 4 or 4S since I've carried an Apple device in my pocket on a day-to-day basis. And so for me, it was particularly interesting to see, number one, could I handle switching back to iOS? You know, I've used Android for a long period of time. I'm used to it. I use Google Apps for everything from a work perspective, from a personal perspective, Hangouts, Drive, Gmail, and more. I use those things on a daily basis, so particularly interesting switch for me. And also, I wanted to see if there were any changes under the hood. Obviously, there have been plenty of iterations of iOS since the iPhone 4 or the 4S, whichever one it was, that was my last day-to-day iOS device, so I wanted to see what it was like several years later, and that is why I'm back with a video update talking about the differences 3 months in, what I'm seeing coming from Android, and what I'm sure you're waiting for, whether I'll stay with iOS after this little 3-month trial or whether I'll switch back to Android. You may want to wait until the end of the video because I've got kind of a surprise for you. Maybe you'll expect it, maybe you won't, we'll see. But I wanted to dive in immediately and take a look at the top 3 things that I love about the device so far and the top 3 things that I dislike the most about the device so far. And it's hard because there are a lot of little things that I like about this device. For example, one of the ones that I didn't even include on the list is continuity. It's a great feature by Apple. I use my computer, obviously, regularly at work, and it's easy rather for me to be able to jump on my computer as opposed to pulling out the phone every single time I get a text message and jumping on it. I can pop it out on my computer rather, get right in there and respond to a text message without even turning the device on. It's a great feature, but let's jump into the top likes here. Before I do that, great to be back on camera. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you get a chance, let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at Aaron C. Baker. Email me as well, aaron@aaroncbaker.com, on Facebook at facebook.com/HiAaronBaker. So let's dive right in. Top 3 likes about this device. Like number 1, the battery life. The battery life is phenomenal on this phone. And, you know, for me, it's not so much that I'm not around an outlet on a regular basis, but more so that I'm jumping from meeting to meeting at work, and then right after work, I go to the gym. So if I am charging my device, it's usually little increments of 10 or 15 minutes. Now, as you know with iOS, the one caveat is there's no quick charging, so that's a little bit of a challenge, but this device makes it through even the hardest day for me. In fact, I think maybe once or twice I've charged this device more than once in a day, and those times have been when I'm traveling. So in one instance, I traveled to Austin for a day trip for work, had to charge the device a second time in the middle of the day, but otherwise, I mean, you can see here, haven't used it that much today, but pulled this off the charger at about 6:45 or 7 this morning, and it's sitting at 73% with no additional charges at the office. So that's great from a battery life perspective. It's something that I see a noticeable difference in with iOS, or at least with the 6s Plus, versus other Android devices. Now, the other thing is fluidity. This thing is incredibly fluid. You know, with Android, I love Android. A lot of people love Android. One of the challenges that even in the latest iterations of Android, fluidity. I mean, in some cases, apps just close, apps freeze up. You have to restart the device. That's just something that people that use Android have to deal with from time to time, but the fluidity is phenomenal here. And even when an app shuts down, it's really nice because it does it in kind of a smooth way. The fluidity remains intact even when there are challenges, you know, from an app crashing or perhaps something stuttering in the background. It stays fluid through and through. The other thing for me, the ecosystem of accessories. So if you're like me, you know, you carry a device for a period of time and it's like, I want to switch out my case, want to get something new. The ecosystem of accessories is phenomenal on the iPhone devices. There are millions of leather cases, there are millions of wallet cases, whatever you want, you can switch the phone out to really suit your personal style. Whereas with other devices on the Android side, it's kind of challenging to find cases depending on how new or how old it is. And even after it's been out for some time, the case accessory selection rather, just isn't quite what it is on iOS with the 6S and the 6S Plus. Now, one of the interesting things here, I use a screen protector on my device. You can see it's kind of chipped quite a bit over the course of 3 months here. Chipped on the bottom, chipped on the sides as well, so I'm going to replace that pretty soon. Now, top dislikes here. Now, you obviously expect this one right out of the gate. The biggest dislike I have out of the gate, lack of functionality with Google Apps. Now, you're probably like, Aaron, you idiot, it's an iOS device. It doesn't have great functionality with Google Apps, and you would be partially right. It's definitely gotten better over the months and over the years. I can use Google Hangouts pretty seamlessly. That said, it's still lagging as you would expect behind Android. And it's not necessarily a big deal if you don't use those things on a regular basis, but for me, I'm always on Hangouts, I'm always on Gmail, I'm always on Google Drive, and the functionality just isn't quite what it is, obviously, but still isn't quite what it is with Android. I use Google Drive pretty regularly, use Google Hangouts. One of my biggest pet peeves is you can't attach a photo. So let's say I'm in my gallery, for example, scrolling through photos, I want to send a photo to somebody in Google Hangouts. I can't do it from the gallery application or the Photos application itself. I have to actually go into the Hangouts application itself, attach the photo from there, scroll through, find it, click, lots of extra clicks. And I think that's a particular challenge for people that use Google Apps on a regular basis. Also, hate to spoil it, but Google Apps and Gmail is still pretty terrible, pretty poor experience in the mail application, the stock mail application that comes on iOS out of the box. Number 2, customization, as you would also expect. Customization is not quite there. Widgets aren't there. They've made some progress, don't get me wrong, with the notifications area here, the today area here, from dates to appointments to things that you have going on in your life. That's definitely a marked improvement over previous versions of iOS, but still it's lacking those widgets. I keep wanting my Weather Channel widget so bad, and you probably laugh and you say, hey, you old man, you can just click on the application and see it. Yeah, but it's really nice to have the widgets, the customization, the ability to change your device as time goes on to suit your personal style. And last but certainly not least, this is another one that's you're kind of like, this could be a positive or a negative for people, but for me, I don't use any of Apple's ecosystem apps with the exception of Continuity. And if you consider iMessage an app, or an ecosystem app rather, I do use that pretty regularly. But in terms of Apple Music, don't use it. In terms of iTunes, don't use it. In terms of anything Apple related, health, don't use it. Any of these things that are in the little Apple folder, in fact, iBooks, iTunes Store, any of this stuff, don't use it on a regular basis. So for me, it's pretty useless. So from an ecosystem perspective, for me from this device, don't use any of the Apple stuff. It's all about Fluidity and the way, ironically, that it works with Google Apps, which, while gotten better over the years, still has some challenges. Now, you're probably thinking, what are you going to do with this device? Let me get that light out of the way so you can see it. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep it? Are you going to switch back to Android? The question is that, and what I'm going to tell you is stay tuned, because I'm still debating. I love the battery life, love the Fluidity, but definitely want to get back to Android, get back to that functionality with Google Apps, because that is huge for me in my day-to-day workload. So big thing there, take it as you will. Obviously, some of these things you're like, yeah, no duh, Aaron, but at least from a 3-month perspective, that is what I'm seeing coming out of this device. Keep it locked right here. We're on YouTube at Aaron Baker Online, so youtube.com/Aaron Baker Online. Check out the channel. Hopefully, I'll have some time to do some more videos. In the meantime, let me know what you think of this video on Twitter, Aaron C. Baker. Let me know what you want to see in a future video right here on the channel. Thanks so much for watching. More to come on Aaron Baker Online. Man, that feels good to say. In the meantime, hit me on Twitter, hit me on email, aaron@aaroncbaker.com, and let me know what you think of the video. Thanks for watching. Well, this is going to be really fun to say. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.